wind up the end of the year with 10,175. And if you follow it, let's follow where we're going. Because we have reduced down to just the single USRD, and they require two payments of 32,000, or a single reserve of 32,732, and our current one, we go down 2/3 of the page to 410. 410 is the fund sewer bond repayment fund. Currently in the sewer bond repayment fund, there's 34,907. The requirement with the agreement with USDARD is a full year's, i.e. two payments of 32,732. The county Sheriff's Department wanting to get more money, want to change our contract. Our contract is good for another 5 years. So we have a guaranteed of 18,000 working its way up at 3% with the Sheriff's Office. If they pass this, this would bring in probably 12,000 more a year into this criminal justice account, so that by the time our contract is over, we would probably have 75 to 80% of the new contract coming in every year of the criminal justice if the levy passes. It's $500,000 on one thing they're looking at a levy reset, and this should bring in for us about 12,000. But we don't get it. It's going to raise the sales tax from 7.7% to 8.0%. And that additional money will help us add to what we're bringing in, going from about $12,000 more if estimates are to be believed when we see where the money comes from. Yes, sir.
Will that proposed levy appear on the 2016 budget, or 2016 ballot, rather?
It will appear on one of the 2016 ballots. The county commissioners are going to put it on the ballot, and they are going to work, and they're hoping, I think, Dylan, you were there at the meeting where they proposed this.
Yes.
Basically, they're looking for the mayors to get behind this, because everybody benefits if we can get more revenue coming in, which will help us in the law enforcement and protection system. Yes.
But we've been there before, and it's failed every time in the past, hasn't it?
Twice.
We've proposed incremental levy increases.
All except the first time that Kelly and I went through, and we got the 0.1%, which is where we're getting the money on this one.
And they're proposing 0.3%?
They're proposing 0.3%, and I think the earliest they can get it on the ballot is like February, maybe April.
Of 2016?
2016.
Uh-huh.
So tune in tomorrow.
Thinking of putting it on the same ballot with the proposed school levy?
Yes.
Well, that would be their choice. The county commissioners, in their wisdom, have great flexibility. Now, how persuasive they are when it comes to the voters remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
I question the advisability of that, but
just
not
vote
my
yes.
decision
Peter,
to be
just
made.
Vote yes.
I will consider the proposal.
Cemetery Endowment Fund represents the investments which the cemetery endowment has. There's 274,000 in their balance, 140 in the investments. They have 50,000 because we will have paid back them the first 25,000 with interest, and they will have 50,000 in city notes that are due in 16 and in 17. Donations, we generally get about 5,000 on the cemetery letter, and then we distribute some of the transfer in from the cemetery fund of about $150 for a total. Since the cemetery endowment, the interest from that is distributed to the cemetery, and we only, this is looking at the principal and the investments. Cemetery fund on page 6 starts with about 34,000 in bank balance and bank balance for investment. We expect sale of lots of about 1,200, No, that's charges for services. Yes, sale of lots is 1,200, and we're looking at lots and other things within the cemetery. It's something to think about. Do we wish to look at, there has been discussion with several people about the feasibility of buying and establishing a second niche, because the niche that we have is full, or is getting full. And so a second niche in about that location would give you another, I forget how many places they have. I think there's about 100 odd in the niche for double burials in each of the little blocks. And they are cheaper to maintain, and people buy them because they are cheaper than a cemetery lot. Interest, this is interest off the cemetery. There's about 4,000 in interest that we look at for the investments of the cemetery. And there's the $750, which is the interest from the sewer loan that we will be paying them back. And about 8,900 in donations. I look at interest is 4,000. The donations are about 8,900. It varies depending on the weather and the people, but it is building a decent and respectable cemetery endowment fund. The anticipated expenditures is about 12 in ending cash. Salaries at about 12.5, personnel benefits 33.75, and these I think are all pretty well unchanged.
No, you took benefits down by about 2,000. We went from 53.75 to 33.75.
Equals down quite a bit.
Yes, benefits dropped.
But then capital outlay went up, or dropped, excuse me.
And some of that, where are we? 12.5, 53, 19, 14, 560, 1,000, 13. Capital outlay was looking at the potential on adding money for that, which goes to 2,300 if we need to buy something.
Went from 23 down to 13.
Went down to 13.
But again, as was pointed out, your interest numbers are lower up above,
Yes.
so that's why those numbers are down.
Okay. And you have basically expenses. The last two O and P are transfers that were when we set up the cemetery, and we got the endowment fund and we got the improvement fund, and those come from what, sale of
At the end of the year, I determine how much of it is for lots, and 10% goes to those other two funds as their percentage of lots that were sold. By
So-
ordinance, that's.
Right. You said that's ordinance 314. Again, just to make sure I understand that, the 10 plus 10%, the first number is for the first 10. You said lots and donations.
Lots that's been sold, and
So what does the 10 stand for?
10%
10% of lots and 10% of what?
donations.
donations are about 8,000.
So they,
10%
$890
of that number
went to
is
the,
that.
see, the endowment fund
Okay.
only gets 10% of their, of the lots that are sold. And the improvement fund gets lots plus donations.
All the yellow comes from.
Comparing the budget from November 18 with the current budget,
Question, if I may?
Yes,
I
sure.
don't understand how the projected interest revenues would be 7,800 and then drop to 4,800. Under cemetery fund 104.
Okay.
The interest shown in the November 18th budget was 7,800, and the projected interest now is 800. Why? I'm trying to understand
The
what
interest
happened
reflects
has
what
changed.
we actually receive.
Is cemetery fund.
And so this number reflects what we have gotten in interest.
The 7,800 then was an estimate.
Was an estimate
3 weeks
which
ago.
over time has not been changed, and interest did not do well for the last 2 or 3 years if you were saving money.
So we have the actual on the.
This is the
on
actual.
this, Okay.
Okay.
So that is the cemetery fund. Cemetery fund investments, this is a separate investment that there is an accumulated reserve fund in 2 specified bonds of 5,000 and 2,000, Closter and Strickler, plus a reserve fund which is represented as cemetery fund investments as distinguished from the cemetery fund endowment. And the investments are not restricted to interest only. If you get into straits, there is considered a reserve fund, which hopefully we won't go into. Cemetery improvement fund are funds that are put aside every year to help us up in the cemetery for additional improvements such as re-graveling the road or painting or some other things that's necessary in an improvement fund. It's meant to keep the cemetery nice. It's part of the 5,000 plus a year in spray and trimming that is done up at the cemetery to keep the cemetery looking nice, because we have both people who spray it and people who come and trim the trees. Okay. And then you have the 890 transfer in, and we make expenditures. The ending cash is prorated down to about 8,000, and we are estimating that improvements and maintenance and ending cash will spend about $2,300, which will balance. Last item is the garbage fund. And this has an estimated bank balance of about $22,700. We spend about $220 in what we receive in recycling. If we can recycle it and get it done, there is an allocation if we take a load in and sell it for scrap. There is garbage revenue of $63,600, which is the total combined rates for all cans, garbage, etc. A little bit of interest of about 50. Salaries at about 6,000. Personal benefits at about 4,500. And these are largely unchanged from the previous November 18th ending cash at about 20,622. And these items of excise tax of 3,000, 1128 for insurance, which is the revised new insurance number. 31,200 is what we pay or reserve to pay Empire. Then we have Adams County, the fee for dumping. We have Lincoln County. They have raised their rates, which are reflected here. And the intergovernmental fees that Lincoln County presents, what was a $5 or $6 fee, it's now gone up to 10, I think. Is that correct, Rick?
I'd have to look at the letter, I believe that is correct.
But 10 is about correct, so that reflects that. And then Lincoln County recycling costs, that $1,800 is basically what it costs us to call Lincoln County and have them pick up the 20-yard dumpsters that are sitting down here when they get full of cardboard or recyclable papers. And that provides two things. It provides us the fact that we are complying with an intergovernmental agreement that goes back a number of years concerning the handling of solid waste materials. and that Lincoln County takes the lead and we cooperate in the intergovernmental agreement and agree to participate, which in a sense, that's what those 220-yarders are there. And the county in turn realizes that it's not all Harrington's garbage that goes in there, that there are people come from outside and add to it, and have given us about a 10% discount off the rate per ton of what it takes to haul it off. I think it's about $170 a ton for hauling it off. So, and the last are miscellaneous and capital outlay, and the ending catch is much the same as this year's ending catch. But we are in the garbage business with the county, and we are here to see that the county and support the county, that we participate, that we have these, which serves keeping the city here cleaner. It saves our costs a little, because if we can recycle it, we won't have to pay as much. If they haul it off, everybody dump their newspapers in their garbage cart, we would have more in tonnage that would be processed. And it's been, I think, fairly successful. I've worked with Rick for a number of years, and county commissioners are doing their best to work with us, you know. It's balancing the budget up at the courthouse has been as difficult as what this one has been going through.
Well, we also need to maintain good relations with our neighbors to the west of us who, I should say to the east of us, who allow us to dump all that burnable stuff on their land up there. Boy, if that all was going through the garbage system.
Yes,
Is that Don Phillips' land?
yes, that's done for us.
Two questions, if I may.
Yes.
Do we have to vote on the minutes from our last
No.
special meeting? Will we do that
At the
at the
regular
regular
council
meeting?
meeting.
Thank you.
That's
And, go ahead, Bunny.
that was just kind of give you an idea of what we talked about if you had questions.
Thank you. And how many checking accounts do we have at the bank? Is it just one? And these beginning balances are estimates of what's in our account that applies
that
to?
treasurer's report that you get each month, that's where those balances come from.
The balances are listed by the treasurer in the actual funds that are in here. And so there's probably 15 or 20 different funding accounts, and that these are estimates of what revenue is going to be obtained in the various funds. And as it comes in or goes out, the council sees every month the treasurer's report, which gives us a listing and the cash in hand. In terms of checking accounts, we have, I think, 2 accounts for the treasurer. She's got a treasurer's account, and she's got a money market account. And Bunny has the single account, or 2 accounts that are basically the claims and payroll accounts, which is combined called the APC. But that way, she can write the checks, the mayor can sign them, and that disperses and pays the bills. And then you get a sheet from Bunny at the council meeting listing all of the checks which are written on Bunny's account, and she also makes account of necessarily the treasurer's reports, and you get the treasurer's account and the treasurer's report.
So all of these beginning balances in this
Are
proposed
rough estimates based
are
on
estimates.
where we are.
But if we were to add them all up, it would come very close
It
to
would
what's
come.
actually on deposit at the
Mhm.
bank in the respective account or accounts.
Right.
Okay?
In fact, the mayor does a pretty good job with pulling the numbers off of that treasurer's report when he looks at these beginning cash, these beginning balances. You can look back. Did you use November's, or did she give you a more recent
I
one?
think it was October 31st. I might have
October
gotten a
31st.
November 15th one.
Okay, but I
It's
mean,
very close.
this number should show up on that sheet, because they're all listed by these numbers, these 101s and 102s and 409s, they're over there on the edge of that sheet.
But if this figure is from October 31st.
They are in October, let's say it's an October 31st figure, which is then estimated what additional revenue still has to come if we are getting in monthly payments
Yep.
for water, sewer, garbage. If we have a payment we have not yet made, that like we still have, when we look at this, the 25,000 that we are going to be paying for the first payment on the note to the endowment, then the endowment is reflected with that, and also the money which is coming out of the sewer fund. So the sewer fund, which may have, if you look at the sheet, 41,000, by the time you take out the 26,000 of expenses, it has less money.
So we will get a treasurer's report at our next meeting on Wednesday. And
That
will
is
you then
customarily
use
the
those
procedure.
figures?
Sir, will tell you that I have 2 days to upgrade what's running here and the changes. And I will be honest, I will be using these numbers to produce a balanced budget for you. And that the treasurer's report that comes in will give you a picture of where I and the estimates may differ. But the purpose of this is to provide the city with a working budget, because besides checking here, I go through the expenditure books of what the city expends on every one of these line items and compares to how we're doing, so there is no large discrepancy of a couple thousand here or there that we have overspent and have not accompanied an increase in the budget, or had excess and we could decrease to cover some of these increases without. And by the way, one thing that I will add, this is sitting here before you. The basic rates are unchanged from this year to next year. We are not changing water, sewer, garbage, an increase in the 20%. We are maintaining at a time when everybody else is looking at ways to raise and increase fees to their patrons. This and the increase that we have, basically, I've looked at it, we are giving a 0% salary increase to the employees, because there are several increases in FICA and other things that would affect them, and we amounts to about 2%, and rather than we will give an increase and they will have to pay, we basically will pick up the increases in their current salary will reflect that the payments that we are making. So in terms of a salary schedule, the salary schedule is unchanged. This year's salary schedule will be next year's salary schedule. And that the increase that some of these people looking at retirement, looking at insurance, looking at all these other things, insurance has gone up, and we are picking up 3 to 4% increase on some of these numbers, which we pay and they get. There's no sense asking them to pay and say, oh well, you can have 1%, but then we'll take 3% back. So this reflects the budget, and it reflects the rate schedule that I am anticipating to go into. There is no rate increase that I would wish to propose at this time. There is a rate increase that we should look at involving variances, that the fees do not cover the cost. And Bunny has mentioned, I think, that to you at the previous meeting. And it will probably be on the agenda for Wednesday. But by and large, our rate reflect our expenses. Okay.
With regard to rates, no, please, go ahead.
I just want to I noted 2 math errors in some of the subtotals, and I just wanted to point those out for,
You may.
um,
They have looked at several math errors that are
it's
floating
just addition,
in.
it's just adding and subtracting, but, so this, on page 1, the, 514-0000, the financial and administrative. The subtotal,
Financial and administrative, go on.
I calculated at 78,698 instead of the 398, which ultimately puts the total of that whole expense
78,698?
correct. Of that subtotal of the 514 group,
Yes.
which then would ultimately have an impact on the bottom total. which
When
would-
I redo this, because we have gone through several 10,000s in and out, and
Sure.
there will be a total
Right.
revision, and these will be retotaled on Wednesday's report.
Fair enough. And then one other one on the cemetery, in revenues for the cemetery,
Which page?
sorry, page
Page
6.
6 is cemetery.
The 340.000, the charges for services, that subtotal I calculated at 15,000 even versus the 14,250, which would change that total to 50,000 exactly.
Well, it will total correctly Wednesday. Thank you.
The human calculator.
It's Excel. I'm sorry, I said 40, I said 40 or 50,000, it's actually 49,250.
Doesn't matter, all the totals will be rechecked
Okay.
on every fund, everywhere. I don't often get into such a nice discussion as we had tonight. And we will get it all put together. Thank you for your time, and you will probably see it with a few corrections on Wednesday. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
I have something
Yes.
for the council. So, first of all, I'll apologize for being late. I was at the post office today and thought for sure I saw 7, so blame me if you're wondering why Dylan was late.
You will have a
but-
chance on Wednesday.
Yeah.
We will have a new and improved budget, then we will go through and
But my main portion of business here is, you see, I got a different camera set up. I think that worked well last time. A number of people said that they watched it. And Marge used it for notes, and there were a few people who watched the YouTube video after the fact. So, point being is, going forward, if we'd like to continue this, I don't think it would make a whole lot of sense for the video streams to be on my personal YouTube account. So if the council would be so inclined, I'd like just simply your permission for me to make a YouTube account on the city's behalf, and if you'd like to continue with these.
No, not until we check with our attorney, because we have a problem with the Privacy Act of the documents that are accessible. We call them our,
we check.
yeah, with when the people request documents and we have to go through.
Freedom of Information Act.
Freedom of Information Act,
Yeah,
right.
and so I spoke with our attorney, and she said, as long as the individual is putting them on his account, the city is not
It's
involved.
public
You-
record.
You can do anything you
But
want.
if we do it,
But we
we
can't do
then have certain obligations under the Freedom of Information, and there are things that we have to need control and lead. It was more complicated than I wanted to hear.
Okay.
But thank you for your effort and the work that you have done.
I personally don't like my image out on the web. I don't
Well, and
mind
that's
recording
a-
the meeting, but I don't like my image out on the web. Don't like it.
Okay? And our advice from the attorney was the city should not get into the streaming business.
Well, unless we have to set up
Unless
a proper way to
we
do
have
it.
to set it up properly. So that is something that that will be up to the council based upon advice from the attorney. But the initial advice, knowing that we had the capability, was that we should not put both feet in.
Okay.
And if someone wants to come in and film here, they can. But they are responsible for the image, and we have not, when we're asked for freedom of information, we can't reach out to them and say, we want your minutes, your recording. You keep the city isolated from
Okay.
the people that look for that. So thank you for your effort, and
And you're free to do it anytime you want, Stephen, you're a private citizen.
that's not a,
We
that
can't
was
do-
clear.
Yeah.
You're perfectly clear to do that, but
And YouTube is a public domain, so it's,
now, is there any other discussion? Entertain a motion
Just
to,
a comment, if I may. It's obvious this budgeting process is not a trivial process by any stretch of the imagination. I'm hoping that our current mayor will transfer the skill and experience to the new mayor. I presume that's been taking place, has it? Have you been?
transferring the skill of running a budget involves, in my experience, about 15 years time going around and around. You tend to repeat, you learn every year as you go, more things to look for and more. This budget took me the better part of 10 to 12 years to get to where I was actually comfortable with the numbers I was generating based upon the revenue we got in and the expenditures. And I would say to expect Dylan to suddenly open the door, come in, and become an instant accountant. I will work with him. I will answer questions. I will show him how I do it. That I am perfectly willing. I can go over the budget here, where we go. I have, for example, a 6-page spreadsheet that I use to help generate this, and I will see that he can get a copy, and a usable copy that he too can generate on his 6-page or 7-page spreadsheet. But Dylan, I feel it's something that hands-on is part of the process, and he is blessed because he has Bunny, who has had 20 years plus hands-on, so that when she sees something. 25, well, 1980.
35 years.
35 years. And if she has a question when she sees something, she can call it to Dylan's attention, and then Dylan can give her a decision. And if he has trouble making that, or if he has a question, he can ask me, and I can give him some advice. The decision ultimately is the mayor's from day one.
Are there courses offered by AWC?
There are courses AWC for a course for new officials, and I would recommend that he go get there. Bunny went 3 years for a city clerk, for a certified city clerk. I have been a corporate treasurer since 1950 in my family corporation, and so I have had a number of years' experience, and even with all this experience, this year with the changes we had to come with, every so often the wheels come off. And I thank you for your patience, and I have enjoyed working with the council in a series of checks and balances. What is our time? What are we looking at?
7:41 we adjourn.
7:41 we adjourned. You got it. Thank you. And I will see you